What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the DK Garage. I'm Jeremy, that's Joe, and this is the Race Day Rundown.
We're at Auto Club Speedway for the second race of the 2022 season, Jeremy. This is pretty exciting stuff after Daytona. We got to witness practice, which was chaotic as all get out. Got qualifying under our belt, so we're ready to go here. Congratulations to our winners of the Prism Box Battle. We sent two lucky winners with a Haley Deegan and a Natalie Decker rookie. They are going to be receiving those cards in the next week or two. I'll get them out in the mail. Excited for that. But if you want to join in on the action now, get in our free DraftKings contest. You can do that with dropping your DraftKings tag below in the comments. We'll invite you. It's free to join. It's a weekly contest. We have a lot of fun there. Always good competition. I'm excited for this week. Fontana. We've already seen a lot of action. You ready?
Oh, I'm definitely ready for this, but I think before we kind of dive into Fontana this week, we weren't able to really get a podcast out this week, which, that's going to happen, I think, some this year. It's going to be a crazy year for both you and I. The NASCAR schedule is crazy. It's only going to get crazier. We need to touch on Daytona a little bit because a lot happened, but not, in my opinion, that really affects everything moving forward. In my opinion, this is when the season really starts. However, we already have a driver locked into the playoffs because of that 500 win, and it's a rookie, and his name is Austin Cindric. What was your thoughts of that ending of the race, and I guess just the whole race in general with this new car? We did see some, parts failures. We saw Brad K wreck basically half the field. I mean, what was your thought on the whole race overall?
We saw Fords be strong throughout the entire speed week, and I think at the end of the race, we saw the Fords really strong, competitive. It was really surprising to see Austin Cindric being the one that was setting the pace there at the end and made some really nice moves, even though he kind of took out his teammate. He was there doing what he needed to do to win that race. It's been nice to see Ryan Blaney be able to pull it out, but we've seen Team Penske be in that position before. It sounds like team orders were sent down so that they could guarantee a win for Team Penske, which was huge for that organization, and I think it really will propel them into the season to really have a nice boost. It got them that win. I think it's going to be something that they'll build off of. Even though Ryan Blaney didn't come out on top, it really shows the leadership that he's and the maturity, I think, that he's gained over the last few years. I really think it's a building block for the season.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to get that move by Ryan Blaney or him backing off the way that he did later this year. I think that was, you're going to get this time, kid, but I don't think that he was happy about it. I don't know. Obviously, I wasn't in that meeting the next day, but I got to think that you're not too happy with that move. But again, you still got the organization a win on Roger Penske's birthday, 85th birthday. Happy birthday, Roger Penske. It's a hell of a gift to get from one of your drivers. But I kind of wanted to bring in Austin Cindric because I'm going to kind of jump ahead. I'm not really sure what to make of Austin Cindric early on. He wins the 500. He looks strong throughout. We did not expect that. We really weren't that high on him this week because he had such a good starting spot. We're like, he's a rookie. He's probably going to have what happened to Harrison Burton. He'll get in a wreck by one of these guys. It didn't happen. And somehow for this week, he's already locked up the pole position. Are we really underestimating, I guess, me and you? I don't know how everyone else is feeling about him. Are we underestimating him this year? Or what do you make of Austin Cindric this early? Because this is incredible. He took over Brad K's car, the 2 car. We know it's a good car, but this is a rookie, man.
I know. I really liked a lot of what I saw in Austin Cindric growing up in the Xfinity Series. I saw a lot of confidence and growth in his performance as a driver. So it's not completely shocking to see him have success at this level. It's just how quickly it's came, I think. To be able to be a rookie and to lead the point standings, lock yourself into a playoff position, and then follow it up with a pole position, beating Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, and the likes of those guys. That's not easy to do, especially at a track like Fontana where you have multiple grooves. We saw in practice how this car, this track, all the things that made this dynamic shift in what we're used to these drivers were trying to adapt, and a rookie was able to get up there and lead that time slot today. That was wild. I think it's going to be fun to watch Austin Cindric continue to develop as a driver, and it could be somebody that has multiple championships under his belt like Jimmy Johnson, because there was some stats that only a rookie matched up to Jimmy Johnson in some of these categories. So that's pretty impressive from somebody as young as Austin Cindric, and it's going to be fun to watch.
So I'm not surprised that he locked himself in the playoffs. I'm just surprised that it didn't actually come on a road course, which is where I think both you and I were thinking we've already seen it last year where he got to run a few races in that 33 Penske car. He found his way up to the front both at COTA and at Road America, and just had some issues happen that kind of took him out of contention. But we know that he can get around these road courses. That's where I thought that he might sneak in, get that win in the playoffs, or get the win to get into the playoffs. But no, he just did it with the 500 and then backs it up with that pole position. Very impressive. It's going to be interesting to see how he continues the rest of this year. But obviously, in my opinion, Daytona turned into a little bit more of a wreck fest than what I was anticipating. I thought that a lot of these guys would kind of chill out, which we did see. We did not see a lot of tight pack racing throughout the race until the end of the race. But it really didn't matter because some guys were a little more aggressive than others. Guys got taken out. Were you kind of surprised by the racing, and do you think we see something similar at other super speedways throughout the year, or do you think it's going to change because parts are still a definite issue? We heard it a lot in practice today.
Well, I wasn't surprised because I knew there was going to be aggressiveness. I think this week here at Fontana, we're going to see a little bit more of the same. We saw it throughout the practice sessions, guys trying to push the envelope and put a couple cars on the wall. You've got guys going to backup cars to start this race. I think we'll most likely see more of the same. These drivers are out there to win a championship. Sure, they have team orders and everything about part shortages and issues that the team is facing, so they'll do what they can, but at the same time, they're out there to win races.
Last thoughts on Daytona before we fully transition to this week, because this is an important race. Like I said earlier, I think this is when you and I both agree on this. This is when the season really starts. The 500 is its own unique event that happens to carry over points wise with the win, getting in the playoffs. That all is still the same, but I mean, it really is the Super Bowl of this whole entire sport. So guys will be making moves that they wouldn't normally make. They're not playing the points game like they will be this week and moving forward. So any last thoughts that maybe you had or wanted to share about Daytona?
I think you hit it right on the head right there, where Daytona was something that is a spectacle for the sport. It's an awesome event that everybody wants to go out and win. Austin Cindric was able to make it a key staple in his rookie season, so it's a really big booster for him. I think it's going to carry weight for him and that team and that organization throughout the season. I think they'll be able to build upon that. But for others, this is really when the season starts. Everybody from here on out, it's point racing. You're going to see a lot more strategy come into the mix now, race by race, and we're going to see how some of these teams really stack up for the long term. We'll start seeing people, if Denny Hamlin does not have a nice race this week, he's going to be in a hole. There's other drivers like him that need to get really rolling early to continue some momentum that they might have built up off of Daytona that might give them a leg up early. So there's a lot to build off of coming out of Daytona.
All right, so from Florida to Southern California again. We've already been here once this month with the Clash. Different location now. We're on a 2-mile track. This is going to be a 400-mile event, so 200 laps. The performance points, there are 140 potential points up for grabs. The stages are going to break down 65, 65, and 70. 2-mile track, though, those are some long runs. We will see several green flag pit stops throughout this race. We saw a few guys in practice have issues getting onto pit road, spinning out. I would not be surprised if that carries over into this race. Hopefully it's not the guys we end up picking, but you know how that goes. The last time we were here, we weren't here last year because of the COVID policies for Southern California. They end up not having the race last year. So last time we were here was 2020, right before pretty much the pandemic hit. And Alex Bowman was the winner last time here, and he dominated. I think he led over 100 laps. Just looked strong throughout. Was really one of his just dominating kind of victories we don't usually see from him. He usually kind of comes in late, but no, he really flexed this race. I don't know if we see that again. He did look good at times in practice. But yeah, man, let's get into Fontana. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think Kyle Larson's as good as you can get whenever you talk about starting somewhere. He's at the top of the salary board on DraftKings. He's someone you can look at potentially for some value over on Prize Picks. He's 11,600, starting 13th. He's not at the pole. He's starting a little bit further back, so he has value in different areas. I think he's a great play in DraftKings from a tournament standpoint, being that he has some upside there with place differential. He could be somebody that gets this dialed in and is able to lead some laps throughout at some point. So I really think he can be a strong play. I've given him a 9 with my impact score. Jeremy, you want to kind of explain our impact scores a little bit?
Right. So if this happens to be your first time watching us here, we give out our impact scores for how we kind of think of drivers going to perform. It's a scale of 1 to 10. We will go in the middle. In this case, with Larson, I'm going to give him a 8.5. But that kind of gives you guys a simplified gauge of kind of where we're at on a driver, kind of similar to a grading system. You obviously like Larson a lot. There's a few drivers that we'll get into down below that we'd like a little bit more, but for different reasons. When I was watching practice and obviously qualifying, it was really condensed, so we didn't get a lot of time with the cars really on track. And then obviously you mentioned all the cars spinning out and multiple red flags. I don't think any of these drivers got into a groove. So I don't really know how many dominators that we're going to get. How many, who's going to really come out. If we're going to have one guy who just kind of runs away with it. If we're going to have, several lead changes throughout where we got 6-7 guys leading, decent amount of laps. I think we're not going to really know how this car is going to run throughout on multiple tracks for a while. It's going to take us 4 or 5 races before we can really get in and be like, okay, these are tendencies of this car. Because based off practice, I got to say, I have a hard time trying to dial in who I think might be the lap leader. You look at history, a guy like Larson looks like a great play starting 13th, but he didn't look that great in practice. Other guys who have good history, we'll get into, Kyle Busch, stuff like that, they had some speed and they have the great track history. How is that going to play out? This is going to be a really fun race to watch because I think we're going to learn a lot for the rest of the season. But trying to get these dominators right. I mean, do you have a feeling? I mean, did you, like I said, I really don't know. Did you have a thought on one dominator kind of race, 2, 3? What is your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think this race is going to set more of a precedence for potentially how the rest of the season goes because this is a new car. A lot of these drivers are still learning. You heard Denny Hamlin basically say, get your popcorn ready. It's going to be an extended race because a lot of drivers are still learning. So I do see that there are a lot of drivers on this slate that are in play. A lot of drivers starting further back that didn't qualify well or didn't qualify at all, Kurt Busch.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we're going to be learning as this year goes on. This is not the typical couple of years that some people are used to watching NASCAR. This is something that's more of a traditional race style that you and I grew up with, and we've been able to watch the cars over the weekend and get a little bit better picture. But with this new car, these drivers are still learning. So I don't feel confident in saying, yeah, I feel like there's 2 or 3 drivers that really stood out that having a huge advantage. I do see a lot of guys that have value, and we're getting ready to talk about those guys. But Kyle Larson at the top, I see him being in a position where he's not in a situation like he was last year a lot of the time. By the way that the field was set, he was always in the top 5, it seemed like, getting a lot of dominator points and being able to lead a lot of laps. This year, he's going to fight through traffic a little bit more if he doesn't have a good qualifying run. We see a lot of guys in the back here that we're getting ready to dive into that have a lot of work to do.
It's something I think that's kind of important to point out is tire fall off is already shown to be very massive here. We saw it in the Xfinity race. We've also saw it in practice and qualifying. With just a couple laps, 5, 6, 7, 8 laps, we're talking about a second of fall off. Do you want to set your car up for those first 5 laps when your tires are really good? Or do you want to set your car up for 10, 15, 20 laps when your car is not as good, but it needs to be better than everyone else because they chose to be quicker early? I kind of think that might be the approach Hendrick is taking here. There was a short practice. They divided the drivers up into 2 groups, I guess 18 drivers or so each. And then they qualified, and they did. It was kind of a cool format. I will admit, I was entertained watching it. But the practice was 15 minutes per group, and you could make almost no major adjustments if you needed to. So it really is going to be somewhat similar to last year, where you kind of just unload, and what you got is what you got. Now you can make some minor tweaks. So I'm just thinking, okay, which teams seem to have set their car up for what style of race? We don't know because the guys didn't get enough time to run long laps, but I got to think that's probably going to be the approach. If Hendrick's going to be in this race, they are set up for the long run. I think that's where Kyle Larson's going to come in. I think that's where Chase Elliott, who we're about to get into, is going to come in. Alex Bowman, I think that might be, if he's going to come into play and defend his win from the last time we were here, that might be when it comes in, because they looked fast, but they definitely weren't the fastest. I think Elliott was probably the fastest overall, we would say, out of all 4. But I think that might be something to kind of consider too, is don't just look at these quick, fast laps, because that's only going to tell you the story at the first 3 laps of a restart. Once we get 20 laps in and these cars are on ice, we've already seen so many guys spin out. Whoever has the best setup for that is going to probably be the one who ends up winning the race, or at least dominating the race. So I think Larson and even Elliott, who we're about to get into, I think they're both options for that, but they're not necessarily my favorite. But let's get into Chase Elliott. He's starting 8th. He is $11,100. I'm going to be at a 7.5. I'm not quite as high on him as I am on Larson, but that's just because I don't see as much PD upside as Larson, and the salary difference isn't really that much to sway me that heavier on Elliott. I think Elliott could have a really nice day. I think top 5 or just outside the top 5 would be a great day for them, good points day, whatnot. I don't know if we see that dominator, so that's why I'm not going to go as heavy on him as I am Larson. But do you feel any differently?
I've given him an 8. I'm right there with you. I think he can have a great day. I think there's a way that he can have a great impact on this race by being up there already kind of through traffic, where some of these guys will have to fight their way through traffic that we're going to be talking about a little bit later. But he has a leg up on that. Just the place differential is going to be a little bit more challenging for him in the DraftKings slate. So I think there's definitely better plays, but if you want to take a shot at him, I would use him more in the bigger, larger tournament environments.
All right, I don't want to spend too much time on Chase. We kind of summarized him with Larson. I want to get on to a couple Joe Gibbs drivers here. We're going to talk about Denny Hamlin first. Comes in $10,700 on DraftKings. He's starting 4th. I would say he both looked good and okay in practice and qualifying. Was managed to get the 4th place starting position. 3 out of the last 10 guys who were going for the pole didn't even get a lap in because they spun out on their laps. So who knows if that would have changed that. But I think Denny Hamlin is a decently strong option here. I mean, we know that he's been one of the best drivers the last couple years as far as just consistency. Didn't really get to see much from him from the Daytona 500 because he had to start in the rear, and he drove his way up and was looking good and then got wrecked early. So we didn't really get to see much from him in that team. I think they can be pretty good. I'm going to give him an 8, but that's also because it's like I don't know if he's going to be that dominator, and if he's not the dominator, there's very little PD upside for him to pay off that salary, even with him getting some fast laps more than likely.
Oh, I agree 100%, and that's why I'm only at a 7 with Denny Hamlin. I think that there's enough plays that are not as expensive and have way more upside than what Denny Hamlin has this week here from a DraftKings perspective. And before we get too far down this list, if you want to check out the scores for all of these drivers, the impact scores, you can take a look at our race guide on our Patreon. There's the full list over there. For every driver, we give our impact score. So go ahead and check that out if you want to, or if you're interested in any of these drivers and what we rank them for or rank them at.
All right, so the next guy that I want to get into, obviously the next guy on the salary board, 10,400, Kyle Busch. He's starting third. He's the only driver in the field with multiple wins at this track. And I think in his career he has 4 wins. Impressive. He's really good here. Over the last 5 races, here at this track, he does have a win, 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s, average finish of 7.8, and the highest driver rating out of anybody over the last 5 races at 116. Great stuff. I'm at a 7.5. I want to be higher. I really think his upside is on our rating score. It's like a 9, 9.5, possibly pinging a 10. However, I feel like I just should mention, watching practice, there is at least, from what we've heard, some slight concern about will this car even finish the race. He heard some kind of weird sounds. He had to shift around. He kind of has the problem figured out, but I don't know if they're going to fix it. They may be able to change out. They think it might be the transaxle. They may be able to change that out, but then that means he's starting at the rear. That's going to take away his chances for dominating the race. So as of right now, it's really kind of hard, in my opinion, to really nail down Kyle Busch. I'm kind of in the middle where I think his upside and his lower side is. I'm at a 7.5. What are your thoughts after practice and hearing some of his comments about his car?
Oh, I'm right there with you. I've given him a 7 because I think he has the ability, if they don't have to do anything with the car and it holds up, to really be in a great situation. That's why I think he's a 7, because you can play him in tournaments, be a little bit different and do that. But in reality, I'm not playing him in cash game situations because it's scary. I think listening to the car, listening to what has happened, if it doesn't hold up, he's going to hit the under over there on Prize Picks, so I would go over there. He's one of my favorite plays on Prize Picks this week. Going over, hitting the under, because I really think if it doesn't hold up, he's going to really have a bad day, obviously, and that's one of the benefits we get to see this year with practice and whatnot. If there are some hiccups, we get to witness it a little bit early, and we might have an advantage to hit the under over there. That's why I'm taking him on there as the biggest advantage, I think, this week.
Yeah, I think I would play that too, and we tried out the new scoring format with Prize Picks last week, and I think overall we didn't ace our picks, so it wasn't that kind of a day. But because of some of the different ways that you can play, if you happen to get 3 or 4, just depending on how many you have in your lineup, if you get 3 out of 4 right, you can still make a little bit of money. Obviously not as good, but hey, you're still profiting. You do like 2 out of 3, then you're basically pushing, but at least you're getting your money back. So you give up a little potential high-end, max payout to be a little bit more safe, I guess you could say, and it worked out well for me. So I think having some of these other guys that we like more as potentially hitting their over and being safer plays, and then taking that risk with Kyle Busch on the under, it's like, boom, if you hit that and you get that, and he's your 4 out of 4, that's awesome. But if he happens to go over and your other 3 hit, it's like, well, yeah, it's still a win. It's still a win. So I like that play. It's based on our projections, we kind of have him slightly over where Prize Picks currently has him at 48.5 based on what we think that he can do. But you're right. If he has any problems at all, boom, that's a lock right there.
Yeah, I think somebody else that might be a fun play over there this week, and you can talk a little bit about him. I think he's one of your locks, is Ryan Blaney. He's looked strong already early this season. We talked about that. I think he's in a great position this week for that game. But even starting 6th, he's got a discounted price tag from Chase Elliott, and by $1,100, he's over here at $10,000. I think you can look at him. I've given him an 8 in the DraftKings environment. I don't know if I want to have him in my cash games, but I do want to have him in tournament plays for sure because I think he's one of those guys that can be a dominator.
So up until this point, I don't feel very confident about any of these guys being the dominator other than Larson, just obviously based on last year, but it's a new year. And obviously that applies to Blaney, but I think what we've seen with Blaney, what we've seen with Penske this year already, we've seen the Fords be fast in races. And so you look at who's starting above them. You got Cindric who's starting above him. You got Kyle Busch. You got Eric Jones, Denny Hamlin, obviously some good guys. One of the other races that we're using to kind of gauge some of these guys is Michigan, and he was the winner at the most recent Michigan race and was pretty good throughout that race and had a heck of a move late in the race to win that one. But I think Blaney, if we can start really picking potential dominators, I think Blaney is a great shot. We didn't even go crazy in our projections for him, and right now we have him projected way over Prize Picks. They have him at 42.5, and we're more than 10 over that currently. I'm going to go ahead and take some Blaney over because I think that's a nice, solid play. I agree he's definitely more risky in cash-type plays on DraftKings. Very nice option on tournaments. But I also don't hate the cash options if you want to be a little bit riskier because I don't know how many people are going to go there. And at 10,000, that's not that expensive because there's some guys further down the board that I think make some of these guys who are more expensive fit right in.
And somebody that I think will find value on pretty much any slate right now is Martin Truex Jr. Because of where he qualified on DraftKings, starting 12th, 9,800, he's got a good bit of upside because he's got a discount compared to Kyle Larson. This is one of his solid tracks. Michigan, he's great at, and so this fits into his wheelhouse. And I like his over on Prize Picks. Our projections have him at a real high advantage right now in the way that they've got him priced over there. So I've got him locked in on the over in the Prize Picks section of our race guide if you want to go check that out. But man, you can play him pretty much anywhere this week and feel confident. I've given him an 8 with our impact score.
I'm at an 8.5. And Martin Truex is the only guy where we share our Prize Picks. I'm at an over as well. I think it's all set up for him. Obviously, we would like to see him lead some laps to really hit that over. But he's been the second best driver by driver rating over the last 5 races behind his teammate Kyle Busch. And with that PD upside of, starting 12th, I really like it. I don't really have too much to say about him because, again, it's like I don't really, know how some of these guys are going to perform. But based on his previous history, if they get that car set up how it needs to be, I really like Truex a lot.
So Joey Logano is somebody I really want to talk about because he's at 9,400. We saw him get into the wall at one point during qualifying. So they'll have to get that fixed, but he's starting 7th. This is an interesting play because he is somebody that can dominate as well. He's a Penske driver. He's got all the upside in the world as well, but man, I'm hesitant to play him in the cash environment. I've given him an 8. I think you can because of his price tag. He can be a solid building block, but I really like him more in the tournament play for sure because there are so many guys. It's almost like a stack of the back approach this week with a lot of guys, but at the same time, I really do want guys that have solid starting positions that can finish the race well and have that nice, solid finishing position. But we do need that place differential throughout.
You need the place differential, but yeah, you want obviously there's no such thing as security in NASCAR, but you want some security with track position. And guys like Logano, Blaney, Elliott, Kyle Busch, these guys have somewhat security because once they start getting back there in that dirty air, you're going to see, I think, a lot of 3, 4, 5 wide at times with some of these guys. So the guys that we like that we're going to get into with this stack the back kind of approach this week, they are going to be the safer plays. But if they get caught up in the wrecks, well, then the guys who finish up high are going to be the ones who end up ultimately helping your lineups out. And I think Logano's a great example of that. I'm going to give him an 8, and he's got the 3rd best driver rating overall the last 5. And over the last 5, he has 4 top 5s with an average finish of 5.6. He's been really strong. I am a little concerned that he did slap the wall. Hopefully it was just cosmetic. No other bigger issues than that. If there's no other bigger issues than that, I think Logano's going to be a stud at this race.
Now we talked about guys that are going to be starting in the back. Kevin Harvick is one of those guys starting 32nd. I like him a lot. I've given him an impact score of 9.5 because he has a lot of place differential. He did get in the wall pretty bad. It sounds like he's most likely going to backup car, or are they going to try to fix that thing?
No, I think the last I saw, according to old Bob Procris, who's just, he's the best.
He's on the game.
He's the best in the game right now. But from what my understanding is, they are repairing his car that he backed into the wall. They decided not to go to the backup car. I guess maybe it wasn't as bad. I don't know the whole ins and outs. This new car is different than the previous year car. Something like that would have completely killed the car, but I guess there's more components that you can take apart, fix, whatever. So I guess they're going to use that. The problem is he didn't even get a full lap in, so we really have no idea the speed in this car. But it's Kevin Harvick. This track is decent for him. He's got 2 top 5s over the last 5. It is somewhat similar to Michigan, which is a track he is really well at. Harvick, 9,200, starting 32nd. I'm at a 9.5 because it's just like you can't pass up Harvick below 10K at that starting spot. All over Harvick this week.
All right, Alex Bowman, 9,000, starting 14th. He was last year's winner, as Jeremy mentioned earlier. I've given him an 8.5 because I think he's got some upside starting at 14th with that price tag, but he's just one of those guys that you always want to be cautious with. I don't want to play him in cash games. I will take a shot with him in GPP tournament plays.
Yeah, he's going to be one of my overs over at Prize Picks. Just based on where they have him now, they have him projected at 40.5. I think he can achieve that, but like you said, it's not like a cash game type play because you just never know what you're going to quite get with this 48 team. If they're on, and I think that Greg Gives is going to have this car dialed in for the longer runs when the tire fall off really starts to show itself. So I like Alex Bowman both on Prize Picks and DraftKings, but I'm with you. I think cash game is just, you can do it, and he'll probably be low owned. So if he hits, you're going to be up there high in the leaderboard. I'm at 8.5 with you. It's just, he's kind of right in that spot where it's tough to feel super confident playing him.
Kurt Busch is somebody a lot of people talked about before anything even got underway this week, and he was already considered chalk, and he is still considered chalk because he's $8,800 starting 36th, and I've given him a 9.5 because I think he's gotten the ability to really pay his price tag off pretty much in any environment. I think you can build off of him in a lot of scenarios, and that's one of the reasons he's our checkered flag in the race guide this week.
So question, is Kurt Busch more chalk or less chalk now after practice? Because we knew he was going to be starting from the rear. He's going to have to do a pass-through penalty right at the start of the race. Unless just some crazy things happen, which can definitely happen in this sport, he should not lose a lap before they make their first green flag pit stops, unless, of course, caution, whatever. So he should be okay. But is he still as much chalk in your opinion? Less, more? What do you think? Because I didn't expect all these other guys who have some fast cars good talent to be starting this far back. I thought he was going to be the obvious PD play.
100% agree with you. I think there are other plays that you can pivot to that offer just as much, if not more, upside than Kurt Busch. But again, Kurt Busch is a heck of a driver in a good position. That's why I've given him an impact score of 9.5. I think that he can be a very strong core building block and should be in most environments.
So I agree with that, but just one last little thing. I just have to kind of just ask as a sort of a general question at this point in the season. Where are you at with 2311 Racing? Because Bubba finished second. He came so close to winning the 500, but neither of them really looked that great kind of leading up to the race. But we figured Bubba, if he kept it clean, he would probably be up there. They didn't look great in practice. Bubba wrecked in qualify, or no, I think he wrecked in practice, so he didn't even get to qualify because they had to fix that car. It seems like the speed has been a little off. What's your thoughts on 2311? Because I'm sure by the end of the season they'll be much better than they are right now, but it's like I thought they'd be a little bit maybe further ahead. Am I seeing things?
We talked about that in our preseason podcast a little bit, where we were kind of concerned with what we've seen, and we haven't seen much except for the second place strong finish by Bubba Wallace. But from Kurt Busch has really kind of been the scary thing. I think this week is really the telltale sign. We'll be able to see them starting in the back, what they're able to gain at a more traditional setting. Even though it is Auto Club, it's going to be fun to watch. I think with them being starting in the rear, both of them both have great upside this week. So I really want to have exposure to both of them, and we'll just have to see how it plays out early this season and take some risk, unfortunately.
All right, so the guy I took as my long shot to win last week, he did not win. I forget exactly why he didn't win. It probably was one of the 15 Brad Keselowski incidents that took him out. But Tyler Reddick, he starts 8,400. He's 8,400. He starts 11th. I think this is maybe just for me, just wanting to do good, but I think he's going to have a great race this week. I got him at an 8. I think they got some speed out of RCR. I know the qualifying numbers don't necessarily show that. Where are you at with Reddick this week?
I'm at a 7.5 because I think he's a great pivot off of like a Kyle Larson or a Martin Truex Jr. Put him in a GPP tournament lineup instead of those two guys, where he can come in, have a nice, great place differential finish and a strong finishing position, and he can pay dividends pretty easily with a top 5 finish. It's just going to be kind of difficult in my eyes for him to achieve that. But he is somebody that's starting up above the field, where there's a lot of guys behind him, where he has a little bit of a leg up there.
Well, and just to note, he's raced here one time. He was here 2020. Again, different car. But he did manage in his one start here 11th. Not bad as a rookie. So I think, he had a good run here. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I do like Reddick personally, but it is a little bit risky in my opinion. Someone who I think is obviously a safe play. I don't know what his ceiling is truly going to be because he's going to a backup car. Ross Chastain with a vicious hit. Was it practice or was it qualifying? I think it was practice still. He was in a corner. Everything was looking good, and it looked like he just blew a right front tire practically straight into the wall. You could tell. Some wrecks just look more vicious than others, and that one just it rattled my bones. I don't know what we're going to get out of that backup car. I don't know what we're going to get out of him, but he starts 33rd. He's $8,200. I'm at a 9. I just don't know how you can't get Chastain in your lineups because it seems like he can only move up from here with that equipment.
Agree. I'm at a 9. I think if he's clear-headed and ready to go and everything lines up for him to have a solid day in a DraftKings environment, and I hope the best for him. And I really think that if he's got everything together come race time, there's no reason for you not to be able to fit him in some lineups. So I've got a 9 for him as my impact, or with my impact score this week.
All right, so we talked about him pretty much at the beginning of this episode. Let's talk about him briefly now. The pole sitter, the 2022 Daytona 500 champion, Austin Cindric, and the number 2 Penske. He starts first, 7,600. I we talked about it a little bit already, but man, I really don't quite know what to make out of Austin Cindric. Is he really this good? Is he just having some good runs? I don't know. I'm at a 6 because it's like I can see this working out, and maybe in GPP environments, maybe take that chance, because what if he does lead 50 laps here and then finishes top 5? Like, he'll probably be in the optimal lineup. But it's scary because he's starting first and he's a rookie at a place that there's a lot of passing that can happen. This is a great track. I don't know what we're going to get with the next gen car, but man, based on what we've seen at the last race here in 2020, what we've seen in practice and what we saw out of the Xfinity race, just because you're up front doesn't mean that you're safe there. You can make passes. There's so many racing lanes. What's your thoughts on Cindric's possibilities?
Well, I've given him a 5 because I think he's really a toss-up. He can go one way or another and really have a big impact on this race. I really see the downside in him, unfortunately, because all the things you hinted towards. So I've given him a 5. I think there's a better plays right below him on the salary board is one of them. Eric Almirola, 7,400, starting 31st, is in a great position. One of those guys with a lot of place differential upside. He's one of the guys that's got a cheaper discounted price tag. I've given him a 9.5.
I'm at a 9. This is a solid track for Almirola. I don't quite know what we're going to get out of him, but it looked like he had a pretty good lap going when he spun out and didn't complete his lap. Starting 31st, you're going to need some of these PD guys. I think he's a great option. He might go a little lower owned because I think some people are going to want to save $400 and go to Bubba Wallace, who starts 3 positions back at 34th. I think both of them are really good. I had both of them at a 9. Just solid plays, I think, between both of them.
Yeah, and I went with a 9 on Bubba Wallace rather than a 9.5 on Almirola because I think you can get a little bit less ownership on Almirola potentially in a cash game setting and even in the tournament play. So I think that's why I've given him that half-point advantage.
I'm really curious to see how this guy's ownership is going to be. That's Justin Haley. He's starting 35th, $6,700. Was looking decent in the Daytona 500, but then I guess a wheel exploded or something. I mean, it unfortunately ended up not being a great day for Justin Haley. I still believe in that team. His teammate Daniel Hemrick, he qualified 5th, and he's going to be sharing that ride with AJ Allmendinger, Noah Gragson throughout the year. That's the trophy hunting car. But you know that Justin Haley is the guy who they're actually going to be putting effort into, because he can win a championship. The other car can't. I got to think that they're going to be trying to figure something out here. I'm at a 9 on Justin Haley. It's just so cheap, so much upside. I would imagine he's going to be highly owned, but I don't know. You think some people might overlook him and just pay up a couple $100 more for Bubba Wallace?
You could see some folks do that, but I think $6,700, 35th is a nice place for him to be. Got a lot of upside. I've given him a 9 with my impact score because I think he's really one of the last place differential guys that you want to take a look at. One of my favorite plays, though, is Ty Dillon. He's 5,500 starting 18th because he's ahead of a lot of these drivers that we've talked about in pretty solid equipment. His teammate Eric Jones is 2nd, and we saw him be fast last week too. So I think he's got a leg up on some of these other drivers. With a discounted price tag, you can really do some different things with him in the tournament environment. I've got an 8 on him with my impact score.
Yeah, I'm at a 7.5, and here's the deal. Anyone who has kind of broken down any of these races who understands this, if he just finishes 16th, doesn't have any fastest laps, has no laps led, based on his starting position and his salary, that's over 5x value. That's what, I mean, obviously you'd like a little bit more, and there's more to get for that team. Obviously, they could have an issue, but I think that the upside for this team is top 15, realistically. But he didn't have to get that to hit a solid value, which will open the door for those PD guys like Bubba Wallace, like Kurt Busch and Kevin Harvick and stuff like that. So it really opens the door. I like Ty Dillon a lot. I think the last guy that you want to go to as far as saving some salary, if you're really trying to get a little crazy, Corey LaJoie, 5,100. He starts 25th. I just don't really quite know what to make of this team yet. They were supposed to be pretty solid with the car last year. Underachieved, I would say, based on preseason expectations. The next-gen car is supposed to make all these teams a little bit more even. We can't really take anything truly away from Daytona. We can take little tidbits, but I have no idea what to make of this Spire team yet. I believe in Corey LaJoie. I think he's a really good driver. I think the car should be fast enough to finish higher than 25th. If he does that, you're looking at another type 5X type driver without doing much work, with a lot of upside, especially if this thing gets ugly, where guys are spinning out and wrecking, and if he's not one of them, that could be in the optimal.
Well, you're a little bit more optimistic on him. I'm with the 6 on him, but I think I see where you're coming from. There are a lot of other drivers that didn't qualify as well that have a lot of upside this week, but there are a lot of drivers we didn't cover, so if you want to check those drivers out, they're in the race guide. You can see the full list there over on our Patreon, and as well as our Garage Thoughts, which is basically our spreadsheet, allows you to kind of see the numbers and everything that's behind our impact scores. So go over there and check that out, part of our Patreon as well. Thanks for watching. This has been fun. Awesome to get to do this again week to week. This week has been a little bit more condensed with everything that's going on, but we're here. We've got all that information out. We appreciate all the support out there, all the new Patreon members, and then everybody all the new subscribers. Thank you so much for joining us since Daytona. It's been a lot of fun to get to see the growth. We were able to give away those 2 Prism cards to some followers. So if you want to be part of what's going on here, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out and lets us know that the content is relevant. And also, again, drop your DraftKings tags below so you can get in with us on our free weekly contest. We just want to continue to see our garage crew grow, so it's a lot of fun to get in on the action over there on DraftKings. But, Jeremy, let's wrap this thing up so we can get in on with the race day action. You have anything you want to add?
Yeah. Before we go, I'm going to give you my race winner, and then I'm going to ask you yours. I don't want you to steal mine like you stole mine last week. I'm going to go with Ryan Blaney as the race winner here at Auto Club. Who you got?
Man, I'm going to go with Denny Hamlin. Surprisingly, I think if he is able to keep it clean and he's had the advantage before, he's going to be one of the favorites, I think, weekly going on through the season. I don't have him highly ranked in some areas, but I think he might be able to sneak one in this week.
Hey, he might not perform very well throughout the whole race and just lead that last lap, which would be great for DraftKings, but would be great if you have him straight up. So, all right, well, that's all I got. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate all the support, and we'll see you guys next week.